One of the messages that Captain Stallings, who's the base CO, has talked about, we've seen it in messages from Rear Admiral Fort, CNRJ, CNFJ Admiral, time and again that this is 100% effort by everybody. Yeah. And it's not just 100% effort for compliance, which of course it is, but it's 100% effort of we're going through this as a community. We need to support each other as a community. We need to listen to each other. When one of us is just struggling and having a bad day and needs some help or is struggling, to be there for each other, that's part of that 100% too. Hello, I'm Chaplain Bradley Lawrence, Deputy Command Chaplain at Commander Fleet Activity Sasebo. This is our first segment on resiliency, and today we have a very special guest to talk to us about resiliency. With me today is Lieutenant Commander Marypat Tobola, who works at our branch health clinic here in Sasebo, and she's going to be part of our conversation about resiliency across the fleet with our families and our whole forces, keeping us focused and fit to fight. So welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Father. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background, maybe some of the duty stations you've been to, and what's your role here in Sasebo?
So I am a family nurse practitioner. I am also the department head for admin here in the clinic. I've been stationed in Virginia. I've been deployed to Afghanistan. I've been on the USNS Comfort, and then received orders to Sasebo in 2018 and have been here since. Married, have 2 college-age children back in Virginia. And I'm just happy to be here and part of the team. It's been a great experience, and what was your other question?
Oh, that's sufficient.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about resiliency. What does resiliency mean to you? How would you define it? How do you see it in terms of your line of work and how you interact with patients and families every day?
Sure. Resiliency, to me, I would define it as that deep-rooted core of your being that you really don't know you have until it's tapped into. When a person comes in and they're just not themselves, not feeling themselves, they're confronted with stressors, whether it be physical, emotional, if it's work-related, marriage-related, any type of stressor, and being able to say, I need help. And perhaps not in those so many words, but acknowledging that what they're doing, I need more. That's resiliency. Being able to recognize you need help, and then getting the help and recovering from that emotional, physical stressor that might be weighing heavy on you.
And then probably coming out even stronger on the other side of that.
Absolutely. And then when you experience that, you're able to help somebody else too. You have that tool now, and you recognize those signals that, this person might need me. This worked for me. Let me help you. So I've experienced that in clinic here, where a patient comes in, we treat them, we talk to them, we treat the stressor as if we would, a cardiac issue or a respiratory issue. It's okay to have a mental health issue. It is okay to address it. It normalizes it. You have to treat the person holistically, and they feel better. And I've had many patients say, thank you, just thank you so much. I feel so much better talking to you. And being able to give them options on that treatment too, and let them have some say in the type of treatment they would like to receive. It doesn't always lead to medication. It's a discussion. It's giving them resources like yourself as a chaplain. It's telling them about Fleet and Family. It's just being there sometimes to just listen to them.
I think you touch on a really good point, which is, as we treat people, help people, give them resources, that empowerment piece of letting them feel, I guess, the ability to make some choices. Because sometimes in the resiliency issue or life issues, you don't necessarily feel like you have a lot of choices.
Right.
And gaining some of that power back, that self-empowerment, is a really critical piece of the recovery process, of the growing stronger process. So thank you for that. Obviously one of the big impacts that we've had recently is with regards to COVID-19 and how that has impacted families and sailors, operational readiness, resiliency, medical readiness. It's a huge impact right now in the world. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about how was resiliency before versus after COVID-19, and what does the picture look like now?
I think it has become, if you will, more prevalent, that need to recognize that resiliency. Pre-COVID, people had their community to rely on when they needed help. Didn't always need to come into the clinic. They had each other. They had their outlets like PT, going to the gym, swimming, going to the grocery store, out in the community, although we are still allowed to do that, but without restriction or second guessing. Going to the Ginza, going to a restaurant. Those were outlets, very natural, everyday, simple outlets. Intra-COVID, if you will, or, during the pandemic timeframe, all the avenues for resiliency were taken away. So you no longer have that support system that you would go to. You had to be creative in how you found that support system through, Zoom or Facebook or calling each other. It was just different. People like to see their friends. They like to go out. They like to allow their kids to play in the playground. All that was taken away. So it was a struggle for families. They had a really difficult time. And now that we're starting to see things open up, you see the community is a little bit lighter. They're somewhat back to that, pre-COVID, where they can go outside, go to the playground, go to the park, still with some restrictions and guidance and maintaining those because it's essential for your health. But I think we're going to see a more positive community. It was really difficult. You have your religious services taken away from you, people who depended on those, the elderly healthy that depended on that outlet and that support, that community support, that fellowship was taken away for safety reasons, of course. I hate to say taken away, but, we're essentially stopped for the health of the community, but it in response caused another issue, stressors, emotional stress. And that need to seek help, to reach out and talk to somebody. In the clinic, we really, again, had to be creative with how we treated patients. Our mental health services never shut down, so we were able to maintain that through telehealth. We did Facebook Live. There were resources given like, seek Chaplain, go to Military One Source, try to be resourceful in other ways to help our community. Appointments were limited, but we still had the telephone appointments. So we still were able to reach out to patients, but it was still a difficult time, and hopefully with things starting to open up, we'll get back to somewhat of a normalcy.
One of the things that's really interesting, both myself, yourself, and others who are involved in patient or sailor care, kind of first responders or responders, resources, sometimes resiliency can be difficult for us as individuals. Yeah. Because we're used to giving of ourselves or listening, and sometimes stopping to take care of ourselves falls to the wayside.
Absolutely.
So what are some things that you found helpful personally, like to build your own resiliency, to move forward as a provider, as someone who's in the resiliency fight?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because you can't pour from an empty bucket. If you don't check yourself and take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to give back to your patients, to community, and to your fellow staff members. So it's really important to remind yourself of that, to seek help when you need help too. It is okay to reach out to somebody that you work with. It's okay to call somebody to say, this hasn't been easy lately, and I just need you to hear me out. We saw that burnout in the clinic, and it's, you hear the phrase, it's okay to not be okay, but it's even as leaders to say, I had a tough day today. And as leaders, it allows, your junior enlisted, your fellow sailors to say, it must be okay to reach out to get help. And that sort of normalizes it in a way where there's no stigma related to that. But burnout is a real thing, and it was a difficult time. We have a great community of providers, and I think, having that camaraderie and sharing experiences was really helpful in getting through this time.
I think it's a great point. I mean, one of the messages that Captain Stallings, who's the base CO, has talked about, we've seen it in messages from Rear Admiral Fort, CNRJ, CNFJ Admiral, time and again, that this is 100% effort by everybody. Yeah. And it's not just 100% effort for compliance, which of course it is, but it's 100% effort of, we're going through this as a community. We need to support each other as a community. We need to listen to each other. When one of us is just struggling and having a bad day and needs some help or is struggling, to be there for each other. That's part of that 100% too. So I think that's a really great point. What are some of the resources that sailors or families or spouses have if they're struggling, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, psychological, whatever their particular struggle is, what are some of the resources that are available to them?
So the resources that I would offer would be, seek a mentor, a support person, physical exercise is always helpful. I'm going to go back to our regular, list of resources. That sounds really terrible, but the list of resources are vast. It's just a matter of knowing where to go to look for them. So Military One Source, of course. Our clinic, come to our clinic, talk to your PCM. We do have mental health providers that are ready to help. We have a cognitive behavioral health therapist, Dr. West, she's fantastic. We have Dr. Viss, Dr. Moon. Your PCM is a source of a lot of great information, and chaplains, and then that core family support or your friends support too. The ombudsman is another valuable asset that a family member, a sailor can tap into. And for our active duty members, don't forget you have your first class association. You have the chief mess. If you have the second class, the petty officer association.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time this morning. Thank you for talking to us about resiliency and your contribution to keeping our sailors, our families, fit to fight mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. We're all in this fight together. Yes. We're going to get through it together. And, even though things are changing and things are going to look different than they were before, there's always something to look forward to on the horizon. So
that's right.
Thank you, ma'am, for your time.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to all of you. Please reach out if you need help, if you need assistance in resiliency. Know your resources. Know that there are people out there who care about you and that are here to support you. So thank you and have a great day.